Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mail Bag, the show here on AMC Movie News where all we do is take your mailbag questions. My name's John Campea. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News. And, you know, we encourage you guys to email us all the time at our email address, amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And every day, Monday through Friday on AMC Mail Talk, we take a couple of mailbag questions. And here on the weekends, all we do is take your mailbag questions. So once again, you can always write to us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. That's where you can email us. And, you know, this is a much more relaxed, informal show than AMC Movie Talk. I mean, we get a little bit behind the scenes, get a little bit more personal, whatever. We're just talking movies. We're all fans here talking movies. Now, before we get going, I do want to remind you guys once again that Comic-Con is coming up. AMC Movie News is doing a lot of stuff at Comic-Con. We've got our annual Masters of the Web panel coming up that I'm really excited about with people like from Fandango and DC All Access, Tiffany Smith, of course, our own John Schnepp, Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis from Schmoes Know, myself, and the great Jeremy Johns. And, of course, we've got Manu Bennett as our special guest this year, talking comic book movies. Manu, of course, has been playing Deathstroke for the last few years on TV's Arrow. He was Crixus in Spartacus. He's the White Orc in the Hobbit films, and I'm really excited that he's going to be part of that. But also, we're going to be having an AMC meet and greet on Friday night at the Omni Hotel. We're going to be having some autograph and picture signings on Thursday and Saturday on the Comic-Con floor. Dennis is putting together a Facebook event page for all the stuff that we're doing at Comic-Con. So keep your eye open for that link. I'll tweet it out and stuff like that when Dennis has that ready. So it'll have the full list of all the scheduled stuff that we're doing at Comic-Con and where you can meet up with us. And we'll hope that we get a chance to meet you there. Let's go on to question number one today. And the first question today comes to us from Daniel Holt, who writes, "Hey, AMC Movie News guys, my question is, will Fast and the Furious be the last one?" I think you mean, is this Fast and the Furious going to be the last one? Because looking at Facebook, the cast have been posting like it's the last one they're doing. Thanks for the question, Daniel. While I do not have any inside information regarding Fast and the Furious 7, I do not believe at all that this is the last one. I know they've wrapped production on it. So you might be seeing a lot of Facebook. I'm just speculating here. Okay? What you might be seeing is a lot of them posting stuff because they've wrapped the film. The film's done. And I know they've also been posting some tributes to Paul Walker as well. And maybe that can kind of give the impression or the illusion that this is the last one. Look, Fast and the Furious is a franchise that prints free money for the studio. It just prints free money. It's getting more and more profitable. And actually, as a franchise, the films are getting better and better. So I really don't think they would have any intention of calling it quits after this one. Look, if Fast and the Furious 7 is a big bomb, which it won't be, but if Fast and the Furious 7 is a big bomb, then I'm sure the studio will consider calling it quits, but I really don't think they will. I think, number one, we know this movie isn't going to bomb. This movie is going to be a big financial success, and then they're going to want to make another one to continue the big financial success. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so, no, I don't believe that they're calling it quits. I've heard nothing about them calling it quits. I think this thing's going to be keeping going for quite a long time. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Matt Van Winkle, who writes, "Hey guys, love the show. How do you think they're going to incorporate both future and past X-Men in X-Men Age of Apocalypse?" So for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure most of you do who watch this show, there's another X-Men movie coming in 2016. Bryan Singer's announced it. He's been writing the script with a writer, and he apparently is going to be directing it, called X-Men Apocalypse. And Apocalypse is just my favorite villain out of the X-Men series. My all-time favorite storyline in comic book history is the Age of Apocalypse storyline out of the X-Men comics. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest you do it. So it's the Age of Apocalypse stuff. So he's asking, well, look, we've seen them blended in X-Men Days of Future Past. We saw the old X-Men cast and the new X-Men cast. And what Matt is asking is, how are they going to mix the two casts again for Apocalypse? Because if if you've seen X-Men Days of Future Past, mixing the two different casts would be a bit of a challenge. Well, the answer to that is I don't believe they are going to be mixing the casts. I think they have now pretty much retired the original X-Men cast except for Wolverine. I think except for Wolverine, the original X-Men cast is now retired. Now, recently, Sir Patrick Stewart did drop a hint that he might have some type of a part in the new X-Men Apocalypse thing. But if it is, it's probably going to be very minor. It's probably going to be very small. I believe they have now retired the original X-Men cast with Days of Future Past, and they are now going with just the X-Men First Class cast, if that's what you can call them. So that's how I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to do it by not doing it at all, if that makes any sense whatsoever. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Matt Clark, who writes, "Hi, when do you think Hugo Weaving's Red Skull will return? Could he return in Guardians of the Galaxy?" Thanks a lot for the question, Max. And trust me, that's something I've been asking myself for a while. Like, I really like the original Captain America. And I know for a lot of people, not a lot of people, I think everybody liked the first Captain America, but not a lot of people loved it. And I really did quite enjoy the first Captain America. I mean, not as much as Captain America 2, not as much as the first Iron Man, not as much as the first Thor, but I did quite enjoy the first Captain America. And one of the main reasons I liked it was because Red Skull. And first of all, I love Hugo Weaving as an actor. I mean, who among us doesn't? Hugo Weaving is just the man. He's awesome. But his portrayal of Red Skull and that version of Red Skull they gave us, I thought was wonderful with his Werner Herzog accent. You know, cut off one head, two more shall take its place. That was a terrible Red Skull. I'm sorry. Anyway, so the question has been that I've been asking a lot is, when will he come back? Because remember, he doesn't die in Captain America. He gets sucked into that vortex when he's on the plane in his fight with Captain America. But remember, he just kind of fell into it, much like Loki at the end of the first Thor fell into the abyss of space, right? And the cube kind of, the Tesseract as they're calling it, opened that portal and away went Red Skull. So I've always believed Red Skull is alive somewhere in the galaxy. And he'll return at some point. But in 2012, I believe, during some interviews, Hugo Weaving pretty much revealed he doesn't want to come back to do it. He has no interest, he said, in coming back and playing Red Skull again. He said he's glad he did it, but it's not really for him. He would rather not do it. Now, Hugo Weaving is under contract to Marvel. If Marvel calls on him to come back and play Red Skull again, he has to come back and play Red Skull again. And Hugo Weaving acknowledged that. He said, look, I did sign a multi-film deal. I suppose, Hugo Weaving said, if they want to force me to come back, I'll have to come back and play it. He said, but I know the guys at Marvel, I don't think they would force me to come back. Unless they really, really, really had to. He said, I don't think they'll force me to come back. And I think he's probably right. I don't think Marvel will force him to come back. However, if that's the case, if Hugo Weaving hasn't changed his mind in 2 years, and remember, hey, I've changed my mind about things I thought 2 days ago, let alone 2 years ago. So, I mean, it's always possible that Hugo Weaving can be looking at the direction of the Marvel Cinematic Universe going, this is pretty damn good. I've changed my mind. I'd like to be involved. But let's assume for a second that Hugo Weaving has not changed his mind. Okay. Well, that leaves Marvel with a couple of options. One, they can just not use Red Skull anymore. And so far, they haven't used him again. I think this is unfortunate because he is a great character and they've already introduced him. They did a great job of introducing him. They've already established him as a really cool, great character. I think it would be a shame not to utilize that and leverage that investment they've already made. I think it would be great for them to use him again. So option one is just don't use Red Skull at all. Option number two is force Hugo Weaving to come back and play Red Skull again. Hugo Weaving's a professional. And Marvel knows if they require him to come back, he may not like it, but he'll come back and he will do the best job he can because he is a pro. That's what Hugo Weaving is. Hugo Weaving is a professional. And even if he doesn't want to come back to play Red Skull, if Marvel decides to play that chip and force him to come back because of his contractual obligations, I have no doubt Hugo Weaving would come back and give it his 100% effort. He might complain, in between takes, but he's a pro. So he will do his job and do it great. But then you got a third option. So option number one, just don't use Red Skull again. Option number two, use Red Skull again and force Hugo Weaving to come back to play him. Option number three, I think is the most likely of the scenarios, which is recast him. I mean, it's unfortunate. Hugo Weaving did a terrific job as Red Skull. I'm a big fan of the job that Hugo Weaving did as Red Skull, and I want to see Hugo Weaving return as Red Skull. But I also think, you've heard me say this all the time, the character is bigger than the actor playing him. Red Skull is bigger than Hugo Weaving. And not to mention, it's going to be in a lot of prosthetic makeup anyway. So yeah, he'll look a little bit different, but he won't look all that different. It will still clearly be Red Skull once they put on all the makeup on him. So your option is to recast him. Bring him back for Avengers 3 or Captain America 3 or a Thor movie or another Guardians of the Galaxy movie, whatever. I don't think he shows up in Guardians of the Galaxy because I know that was part of your question. But just recast him. So there are your three options you have if you're Marvel. Either don't use Red Skull anymore, which I think would be a shame and a waste. Use Red Skull again and force Hugo Weaving to play him, or use Red Skull again and recast him. I think the two most likely scenarios are probably that they don't use Red Skull at all, or that they use Red Skull and just recast him. I don't think it's likely. I think Hugo Weaving is right. I don't think it's likely that Marvel will force him to come back if he really doesn't want to do it. But they have the power to do that. So if they do it, I'll be happy. Sorry, Hugo, I love you, but I hope Marvel forces you to come back. I hope they pull on that leash they've got you on and pull you in to do it, just because I want to see you play Red Skull again. But like we said before, who knows? Maybe he's changed his mind. It's been 2 damn years. So maybe he's changed his mind since he made those statements. Who knows? All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Jessen A, who writes, first of all, I really enjoy your show. Thank you so much, Jessen. I work in the industry, and it's great watching a film review show with people who know their stuff. Well, thank you so much. I think Andy Serkis is an amazing actor, and his motion capture work is fantastic. Can't flaw his work. However, will Jar Jar Binks get some recognition for its groundbreaking in motion capture CGI, and Ahmed best for his work as Jar Jar? Keep up with the great work. Well, I mean, one of the things everybody knows how much I detest the Star Wars prequels. I mean, like, the thing is, part of the reason I hate them so much is because I feel betrayed and duped, because, you know, I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan, so I went in doughy-eyed to watch them all, and I just lied to myself and convinced myself I liked them all, but the more I look at them and realizing, nope, I just fooled myself. These movies are terrible. But one of the things I've always said, even though I hate The Phantom Menace, I will always defend the visual effects work that Industrial Light and Magic did in that movie. It was groundbreaking. Now, we'll get to the Jar Jar specific thing in a second, but just overall, the visual effects in The Phantom Menace, and I know a lot of people like to complain about they overused visual effects. That's fine. That's fine if that's your opinion. All I'm saying is that the visual effects themselves were astounding and groundbreaking and revolutionary. And as much as I hate The Phantom Menace, the fact that the visual effects team behind The Matrix, which did a great job, but the fact that The Matrix won Best Visual Effects that year instead of The Phantom Menace is a complete joke. Is a complete joke. And I think people just rewarded Matrix because it was a much better movie than The Phantom Menace was, but that wasn't the category. The category is Best Visual Effects. And the Phantom Menace effects are incredibly insane. I mean, that movie is now, what, 15 years old? Is it 15 years old? I think it's 15 years old now. And the effects pretty much hold up today. 15 years later, and the effects in the Phantom Menace pretty much hold up today. There are better effects today, clearly and obviously, but I mean, if you walked into Phantom Menace today for the first time and saw the visual effects, they wouldn't strike you as being old and dated. They wouldn't strike you as being the best in the business right now, but they wouldn't strike you as old and dated. That's how good the effects were 15 years ago. Okay, now let's get to Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar was a brave endeavor from what he was physically. And I believe from a technical point of view, what they did with Jar Jar Binks was astounding. It was really astounding. But Ahmed Best, who by all accounts, I know some people that are friends of Ahmad's, and from all accounts, he is an awesome guy, super great personality, really fun to be around. From all accounts, he is just a terrific human being and a terrific individual. But let's call a spade a spade. There was nothing good about his performance. Don't confuse the final product like the technical aspect of a character with great performance. Jar Jar looked great. He did. From a technical point of view, it's astounding what they did 15 years ago. But let's not confuse that with a good performance. No, Ahmed Best did not give us a good performance as Jar Jar Binks. You can't put what Andy Serkis has done as Caesar in the Apes movies, or what he did as Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. You cannot compare what he did there and what Ahmed Best did with Jar Jar. One was, I believe, an Academy Award level performance. The other was, you're just the guy in the suit and doing yippee yay, pee-yusa. Like there's a difference. And so no, I don't believe we will ever get credit for Ahmed Best, nor do I believe we should. No disrespect to Ahmed Best whatsoever. By all accounts, awesome guy. Seems like I've watched his video blogs while they were doing the films, and I remember thinking, I would love to hang out with this guy, and I would, but let's not, just because he's a nice guy, let's not start putting him on Andy Serkis's level. They are just really, really two different things. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from, oh, look at that. I forgot to put in the name. I'm so sorry. I don't have the name of the person who sent this. My bad. So sorry. But I'm going to read your question anyway. Thanks, guys, for your awesome show. Well, thank you so much, No Name Guy. I recently watched the complete Firefly series along with Serenity, and I loved it and started hating the people who were responsible for its cancellation. My question is, will it ever be relaunched by Joss Whedon again? It is, in my view, one of the best works of Joss Whedon. Thanks, guys, and keep up the great work. Well, Serenity, which is the movie version of Firefly. Firefly and its movie version, Serenity, they're wonderful. They're just fun and wonderful. And the movie was one of the best sci-fi movies, I think, of the past 10 years. I think it's wonderful sci-fi. And it carries all the great traits that a good Joss Whedon production carries. Do I think Joss Whedon will ever return to it? Well, I think there's a place in Joss Whedon's heart that always thinks he would like to. But I don't think he ever will. And part of the reason that I don't think he ever will is because no one is going to pay for it. You know, there's this... Serenity is a very profound statement, the movie itself, and its success or lack thereof. Because there's this, large sentiment around that, show gets canceled because nobody watched it. And then there's this attitude of, you don't understand though. The fan base grew like crazy once that show got canceled, and now it's huge, and everybody bought the DVDs, and now the audience is much bigger. If you make a movie of this, I'm looking at you at Arrested Development. If you make a movie about this, everybody will go to see it. Well, okay, heard that song before. Serenity, and Universal took a chance on that. Fox gave up on Firefly as a TV show, but Universal decided to buy into that theory. That since its cancellation, huge groundswell of the fan base, that the fans have grown, people now start watching it on DVD, people now love the show, and blah, blah. And if you make a movie of it, it'll succeed. So what happened? They made a movie, and it bombed. Let me just bring up the actual, I think it was around 35 million. I could be wrong. Serenity box office. Okay, let's take a look here. And now the film came out in 2005, so it was 9 years ago. Worldwide, Serenity the movie made $39 million. Now, most movies today, if you just have your opening weekend at $39 million, it's considered a failure by a lot of standards. Its worldwide total was let's round it up, $39 million. The production budget was $39 million. Which is actually pretty cheap. You couldn't make that movie again today for $39 million. But, so the production budget was $39 million. Its worldwide grand total was $39 million. So, then you put in the marketing budget. The marketing on that back then was probably about $15 million. Then from that $39 million, you subtract roughly a third for the theaters to keep their cut. So now you're looking at about a $45 million costing project that actually brought about $20 million back to the studio. Roughly. So the movie lost the studio $10, $15, $20 million. The reality is no one's going to take another chance on it. Now, Joss Whedon may want to make one, and I think there's a part of his heart that always will. He loves Serenity. He loves the Firefly universe. Ann and I have rewatched the entire, series a couple of times, and we love Firefly. But the fact of the matter is no one's going to pay for it. Because you're going to need at least $60 or $70 million to at minimum $60 to $70 million to produce and market a Firefly film, another one at any rate, which means you're going to need a box office of about 110, 115 just to break even. Just to break even for the studio. And there's no evidence to suggest that that can happen. So while I would love another Serenity film, while I would love a continuation of the Firefly story, I don't think it's going to happen because there's nobody out there who's going to be willing to put up the money and pay for it. Universal did, and they got burned. So it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's going to happen. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Lewis Gibson. And Lewis Gibson writes, "Hey, AMC crew, love the show. My question is regarding Best Picture. Do you think X-Men Days of Future Past or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes should be nominated for Best Picture? And if they aren't, would you be shocked? Thanks, and keep up the good work." Well, most of you guys know that for my money right now, X-Men Days of Future Past is the best film of the year. There's a couple of films that give it a run for its money, but for me right now, X-Men Days of Future Past is the best film of the year. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is certainly getting the buzz for it. I wouldn't put it in my top 4 right now, but it's a really good film and enough other people really love it that you can make an argument that maybe it deserves a nomination for Best Picture. It's far too early to tell. That's the thing. It's just far too early to tell. Realistically speaking, the films that generally have a legitimate shot, that the studios feel have a legitimate shot at Best Picture, they don't usually release those films until you at least get into November and December as you get closer to the Oscar date. That's their strategy, and that's their philosophy of how to release those films that they think really have Oscar consideration, Oscar chances. What that means is that we simply don't know what the competition is yet. We're only a little over halfway through the year, and a lot of the true Oscar contender films haven't even been released yet. So let's put it this way. If the Oscars were being held tomorrow, yes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I have no doubt would be nominated for Best Picture. Yes, X-Men Days of Future Past would be nominated for Best Picture and absolutely should be, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't. I actually think Captain America would be nominated for Best Picture. I would nominate Boyhood for Best Picture. There's a few films, but that's, the Oscars aren't tomorrow. So it's kind of pointless to think about that. It is impossible to say, yes, I will be outraged if X-Men Days of Future Past isn't nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars in February, when I don't even know what it's up against yet. So let's be rational. Everybody knows my love for X-Men Days of Future Past, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's be rational and wait to see what else comes out. And then once we understand what the landscape is and we know what all the other films are and we've had a chance to see them for ourselves, then we can start having that discussion if it should or shouldn't be nominated for Best Picture. But until we see what the competition is, we shouldn't even be having the discussion, to be honest. So that's my answer for that. All right. Let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today is kind of a long one. It comes from Brian Bondery, who writes, "Hey guys, love the show and watch it every chance I get." Thank you so much, Brian. You have all been saying how much Andy Serkis or other motion capture artists should be recognized by the Academy for their performances, and I am completely on board with that alongside you. But what about voice actors as well? I'm not saying voice actors just for animated movies, but also CG characters in live action movies as well. For example, let's say Bradley Cooper gives his best performance yet playing Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy. Should the Academy recognize that performance and include it in the acting category, or make a separate performance category? What are your thoughts on this? Well, thanks a lot for the question, Brian. Let me address your question in parts. Let's start with the argument that I do believe. I thought for the first Planet of the Apes movie that Andy Serkis should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I believe he should have been. Because it is him. It's Andy Serkis. Now, the argument that a lot of people like to make against people like Andy Serkis getting an acting nomination, and I've had this debate with my good friend John Schnepp as well. And what Schnepp and a lot of other people will argue is that, there's a team of people that goes into making the performance of Caesar. It's not just Andy Serkis. There's a team of digital artists who go in and have to do a lot of the work and put that in. So it's not just Andy Serkis. There's actually a team of people, and therefore a guy like Andy Serkis should not be nominated for Best Picture. And I understand that argument, and it's a sound argument. It's a logical argument. My counter argument to that, whether you choose to accept it or not, but my counter argument to that is that no actor's performance is just the actor. When you see Leonardo DiCaprio on screen doing what he's doing, he's great, he's brilliant, but you're naive if you think that's just all Leonardo DiCaprio. There is a big team of people behind bringing you that character. From the wardrobe people, the makeup people, the prosthetics people, the lighting, the camera operator, and most importantly, the director. All of those people have something to do with what you physically and emotionally see coming off of an actor when they're doing their performance. Many Oscar categories are really team efforts. I mean, you can have best score, and so it goes to the composer. Well, that's great, but that composer is only as good as the orchestra that's working with him. Every category is really a team effort, right? And so my argument is, yes, there is a team of people going behind, as well as Andy Serkis, to bring us Caesar. But my argument, there's also a team of people to give us what Leonardo DiCaprio gives us. Because, DiCaprio can do something a certain way, but Scorsese can then go, hey, wait a minute, Leo. I like the way you did that, but now try doing this instead and move your eyes this way and put this inflection in your voice and hammer your fist down on the table as you do it. Try that. So DiCaprio, because he's the director. That's what directors do with actors. So DiCaprio does that. Boom, nominated for Best Actor. Is it just Leo? No, it's not just Leo. It's everybody else that went into helping bring that character to life. It's not just Leo. So while I agree with my friends who say, hey, it's not just Andy Serkis, I agree. But no actor you ever see is just that actor. There's always a team of people behind them influencing what we see on screen. When it comes down to it, though, essentially the performance we're getting is Andy Serkis. The difference is, instead of a costume made of fabric and wool and buttons and zippers, it's a digital costume put on him, but it is still Andy Serkis and his performance. That's the thing. The way he moves and the subtlety about what he does and, the face and the way he talks and all, that is his performance. The performance is both physical, visual, and of course, auditory. The way he says his lines, the way he carries himself, it's all that kind of stuff. And that's why I make the argument that, once again, if the Oscars were held today, I would make an argument that Andy Serkis should be nominated for Best Actor this year. Not Best Supporting Actor, Best Actor. Because the character of Caesar, I think, is the best character we've had in film all year. Well, who gave it to us? Andy Serkis. And a whole team of people behind him. Absolutely. But still Andy Serkis' performance. So, I would go with that. Now, I say all that to say that no, I do not believe voice actors alone should be given a category. Why? Well, because of what I was talking about. It takes out the physical. Like, yes, it is a digital creature you see when Andy Serkis performing Caesar, but that's him. That digital stuff you see is just the costume that's put on him digitally. It's still, and that is Andy Serkis' physical performance when he's Gollum, when he's Caesar, when he's King Kong. That's Andy Serkis. It's just the costume that's on him. Voice actors is different. There is no physical aspect to what they're doing. They go into a sound booth, look at a script, and read the lines. And then the director will tell them, say it this way now. And then they'll read the line again. And then the director will say, okay, now try saying it this way. If you really want to see that in action, look on YouTube for Lord and Miller, the two directors of the Lego Movie. And them, the behind the scenes stuff of them directing actors like Will Ferrell and Liam Neeson, in sound booths. You see, okay, now try this. Now, blah, 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 and they try 50 different ways. Now try this. So while it's their voices and they can be doing a good thing with their voice, what the physical representation, there is no physical performance. And so I would say no. But I would also say no to a voiceover category for another reason altogether. Even giving it its own category. So it's not being compared to, Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever. You suggest, could you just give voice acting its own category? And I wouldn't. Why? Because the same reason I don't like the best animated feature category at the Oscars. I believe it's a cop-out. It's a throwaway, mean nothing, diminutive Oscar. Why? Because there are 900 films produced every year. Not all of them make it to the big screen. Not all of them make it to a theater near you, but there's hundreds and hundreds, near thousands of films produced every year. And when you're talking about the category of Best Director, you got 900 people, except for their director team. So maybe 1,000 people that could be nominated. It's you against 1,000 other directors. Best cinematography, it's you against 1,000 other cinematographers. Best sound editing, it's you against 1,000 other sound editors. Best actor, it's you against 1,000 other actors. Best animated film, it's your film against 20. It's so diminutive and it's insulting. The only reason the Academy created the category of Best Animated Picture was so they could get a cop-out from nominating animated films for Best Picture. I don't give a crap what medium a film is in. A good movie is a good movie is a good movie. If Ratatouille is the #1 critically rated film of the year and everybody loves it, including you damn Academy voting members, you all loved it, then you don't disqualify it from Best Picture because the medium's different than the other medium. A good movie is a good movie is a good movie. And so I've always felt like the Best Animated category is a cop-out. It's insulting. Because, oh yeah, you know what it is? Best Animated category is like the little kids table at the family dinner. Like the real family members sit here. You go have that little table over there. Yeah, you and 20 other people. Whereas all the other categories, screenwriting, 1,000 other competitors. Best adapted screenplay, 1,000 other competitors. Just all these things that make the Oscars so wonderfully difficult to win. Oh, but now you go for a 1 in 1,000 chance to 1 in 20. And it would be the same thing, I believe, if you created a category for best voice acting. It's like, well, really, how many are there going to be? And now, in Best Animation, you're getting films nominated for an Oscar that shouldn't even be nominated for an Oscar, but because there's only 20 films, you got to nominate at least 3. So like 1 out of every 7 films, wrap your head around that. 1 out of every 7 films gets a nomination. Whereas, with a regular real Oscar, instead of 1 out of every 7, it's 1 out of every what? 200? 1 out of every 200 will deserve to get a nomination. But then you get categories that can only have 20 eligible people to even compete for it. And it's like, yeah, 1 out of every 6, 1 out of every 7 will get a nomination. It's insulting. It's a terrible system. They need to get rid of the Best Animated category, in my opinion. They won't, but they need to get rid of it and then start, when they are the best films of the year, you need to start acknowledging that they're the best damn films of the year. Not to mention, when you get a film like Up, right, that gets nominated for Best Picture, like Up, I believe Up was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Well, then there's no drama left for the Best Animated category anyway. Because how is Up going to be nominated for Best Picture and not win Best Animated Film? I mean, so it takes the drama out of it completely. I believe you got to get rid of it, and that's why I would personally not have a category for Best Voice Actors. Not that voice actors don't deserve to be recognized. Not that voice actors don't have an incredible craft. I just don't believe, though, that the circumstances make it that you give it an Academy Award category. Until 500 films a year have voice acting, and voice acting is a mainstay in every single film, I don't believe it should have a category. But that's just my opinion. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from John Eric Servini, who writes, "Hey guys and gals of AMC, love the show." Well, thank you so much, John. My friends and I watch it every day together. Awesome. AMC Movie Talk viewing party. Anyway, with the Jurassic World being set 22 years after the first Jurassic Park, but still being a sequel, it got me to thinking about Superman Returns. Looking back at that film, I always felt it was more of a sequel to the Christopher Reeve films than a movie all on its own. Do you think if Warner Brothers had promoted it more as a sequel to those films in the trailers and advertising before it ever came out, it would have been looked on more favorably by the audience than it was? Thanks, and keep bringing on the filthy. Well, thanks so much for the question, John Eric. Superman Returns is a very interesting film. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I really like Man of Steel a lot. Man of Steel. I really like Superman Returns a lot. But here's the conundrum that it created for itself. It's my belief that Superman Returns is a very good movie, but it's a very poor comic book movie. Superman Returns, Bryan Singer had this vision of creating not the action superhero, but creating a look at the God-man, Superman, at the God-man, and what it's like to be all-powerful and yet completely helpless. To be able to crush mountains with his own arms, but not know how to communicate with the woman he loves. To not understand how he can fit into a world that is now his home, but that he's completely alien from. That was the goal Bryan Singer had in mind in making Superman Returns. And I think as such, I really think he succeeded. I think he made a very good movie. The problem is, it was also a comic book movie, and it's a very bad comic book movie. Superman, you can't have a Superman movie and not have him fight anybody. I've always said this before. You could have subtitled Superman Returns as Superman Returns, Superman lifts things. Because really, what are the big action beats? It's Superman lifting a plane that's falling out of the sky, and it's Superman lifting a mountain of kryptonite. Look, from my understanding, when you put Superman even near a sliver of kryptonite, he can fall to the ground and collapse and start going, but get a mountain of kryptonite and he's lifting in the sky, that was very poorly thought out. But anyway, those are the action beats of the film, of Superman lifting things. Very few action beats. I thought Lois Lane was miscast in it. They've just made several mistakes. So overall, I thought it was a really good movie for the movie that Bryan Singer was setting out to create. I think he did a great job. But the problem is, you've got to understand, if you're making a Superman movie, people are expecting a Superman movie. So no, I don't believe that changing the marketing of it, because I agree with you. I feel like Superman Returns very much feels like a successor to the Christopher Reeve films. I really, really do. And I think that's part of what he had in mind. But I don't think marketing that way would have made people feel better about it, because it still would have failed as a comic book movie. People wanted to see a Superman movie, a comic book movie, and they didn't get it. So while I really, really like Superman Returns, I do not blame anybody for those who don't like it, because I could totally see why you'd be disappointed. There's a part of me that's disappointed, even though overall I still really like the film. So no, John Eric, I don't think them changing the marketing strategy would have changed people's reaction to it. I still think it would have the shortcomings it had, but that's just me. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Ben Tevlin, who writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Been watching for over a year now, and I'm still hooked." Well, awesome. Thanks a lot, Ben. My question may seem strange, but hear me out. With the news of Ridley Scott planning on making another biblical film, and with so many studios today having shared universes, Marvel, DC, The Conjuring, etc., what would you think of, wait for it, a biblical shared universe? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Well, for those of you who don't know what Ben's talking about, Ridley Scott has his new directorial film coming out, Exodus, Gods and Men, or Gods and Kings, or Kings and Gods. Gods and Kings, Exodus, Gods and Kings. Of course, starring Christian Bale, Joel Edgerton, Sigourney Weaver, and a number of others. And I really liked the first trailer. I thought the trailer looked pretty good. I think I'm dubious now of Ridley Scott. I mean, I've given him the benefit of the doubt for a lot of movies for a long time, but to be honest, I haven't liked a Ridley Scott film in quite a while. Not since Gladiator, really. Yeah, I think Gladiator was the last Ridley Scott film I actually really liked. Anyway, but I think the trailer for Exodus, Gods and Kings looks really good. Now, they have also just announced that Ridley Scott's production company that he runs is also going to be developing a King David movie, starting off with the events of David slaying Goliath. Now, but it hasn't been confirmed or said that Ridley Scott himself will actually direct that film. I'm not even sure that he is. I don't think he is, as a matter of fact, but he might. It's his production company. So what Ben is asking here is, what if they create a shared universe? What if they say if the events of Exodus happen in the same world, the same timeline, even though it's much later, as King David? You could do that. No reason they couldn't. But I don't see the advantage of it. Considering the events portrayed in Exodus Gods and Kings and the events portrayed in a King David story would be separated by hundreds and hundreds of years. Do I have that timeline right? That's a long time. Separated by a very, very long time. You wouldn't have any crossover characters anyway. So really, what would be the point of saying they're a shared cinematic universe? Doesn't make much sense to me. So while you could do it and you could say that it is, in practicalities speak, it really wouldn't be, because there is no crossover element really. So I don't really see the point of it. But thanks a lot for the question. It's an interesting question. All right, and now we move on to the final question of the day. And the final question today comes to us from Jessen Shalman. Am I pronouncing that right? Dude, I'm probably butchering your name. Schlaman. Jessen Schlaman. I'm going to go with that. Forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. I'm really bad at names. Hey guys, love this show. Thank you so much, Jason. My question is, with Chris Pratt's career skyrocketing recently, do you see him earning an Oscar anytime in the near future? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, could I see Chris Pratt earning an Academy Award anytime? I'm just going to try to bring up a picture here. For those of you who watch me for any period of time, you know that I am a big Chris Pratt fan. I'm a huge Chris Pratt fan. I really love him on Parks and Rec. Why was I getting a brain freeze there? I really, really love him on Parks and Rec. And on top of that, I really like him in just about every movie I see him pop up in. And most of his stuff has been smaller roles. But every time he's popped up, I've always been a big fan of his. Now, as some of you may know, a couple of months ago, we had a chance to have James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, Kevin Feige, who's the president of Marvel, and of course, Chris Pratt himself. We had a chance to have all of those guys on our AMC movie talk show, and it was great having them on. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Pratt. I'm going to bring this up here. For those of you some of you may not have seen this picture before, but I'm going to bring it up here. You may not know, if you are one of the sons and daughters of AMC, Chris Pratt is one of your members as well. So there's Chris holding up his Sons of AMC shirt. This is what was at our AMC studios a couple of months ago when he came in, and he's wearing the Star-Lord jacket, which I thought was really cool. So anyway, there's Chris. So I'm a big fan of Chris Pratt. Huge fan of Chris Pratt. Cannot wait to see him again. I'm meeting up with him again in 8 days. Love that guy. He's awesome. But I'm not going to be biased here. While I think he's really funny, great comedic timing. I thought he was really good in Moneyball, but that was a small sampling of his dramatic chops. And a couple other things he's done as well. Popularity doesn't equal Oscar. Okay? I don't think, while I really love watching Chris Pratt on screen, I do not think he is in that league yet that he could be discussed in potential Oscar winner. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not to say he couldn't continue to grow and develop and get better and better and better and better and better. And I'm sure he will. And that at some point, someday, that may happen. But do I feel like right now that in the near future, in the next 2 to 3 years, Chris Pratt could be standing on an Oscar stage holding up a gold statue? Honestly, no. And that, like I said, even though I'm really biased for Chris, because I'm such a big fan of his, I'm going to honestly say no. I don't see that happening in the near future. In the near future. Could it happen eventually? Yes, because he's already shown us flashes that he can be really good dramatically as well as comedically, because comedically the guy's just gold. Just gold. But he's also shown that he can do dramatic and do it pretty well. If he keeps developing that, then who knows what he can accomplish. Sky's the limit. But as of right now, I'm going to have to be objective and say, no, I don't think it can happen in the near future. But let's see what happens down the line. All right, folks, that'll do it for me for this installment of AMC Mailbag. Thank you so much for making me a part of your Saturday. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, come see, as I knock the mic around, come see us at Comic-Con. Even if you don't got a pass to Comic-Con, we're going to be hanging around San Diego. Come to our meet and greet and stuff like that. You can come even if you don't have a pass to Comic-Con. That'll be great. Listen, lots of great films playing in AMC theaters right now, including Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video and you'll find a link to our iTunes and our podcast feed so you can listen to us on the way to work or listen to us while you work out or whatever. So thank you so much, guys. And don't forget, Click on the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. Click the thumbs up button. It's a good way of letting other people know you like the stuff that we're doing. And by all means, share this video around on your various social media networks. So, my name is John Campea. You can find me on all the various social media networks, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Come follow me at John Campea. So that'll do it for today, guys. Until tomorrow, my name's John Campea for AMC Movie News. And until then, bye-bye.